Your life will not change because of 100 decisions. It will change because of one. Think about that. One decision made today at this exact moment has more power than a year of wishing. Most people are waiting for a turning point. They imagine it will arrive with fireworks, with certainty, with some unmistakable sign that says now is the time. But that is not how transformation works. Transformation does not announce itself. It hides inside an ordinary moment, disguised as a small choice. Nobody else will notice. Here is a hard truth. You are not far from the life you want. You are one decision away from it. Not 10 years away, not after the perfect plan. The decision to stop scrolling and start moving. The decision to say no to comfort and yes to discipline. The decision to stop explaining your delay and start building your future. That decision is available to you right now, in this second, whether you feel ready or not. Most people misunderstand change. They think it requires a complete transformation of circumstances. New job, new environment, new luck. But circumstances rarely change first. You change first. And the moment you change, your circumstances begin to follow. That is the order of life. Decision before evidence. Commitment before comfort. Action before proof. Let that sink in. You do not need proof that this will work before you begin. You need the decision. Proof comes after. Confidence comes after. Momentum comes after. But none of it arrives until the decision is made. Now understand something important. A decision is not the same as a wish. A wish costs nothing, so it changes nothing. A decision costs something. It costs comfort. It costs the version of you that wanted to stay the same. That is why so few people actually decide. They wish quietly, they hope silently, but they never draw the line that says, from this moment forward, I choose differently. Think about how many people are one decision away from a stronger body and never make it. One decision away from a business, a skill, a new direction, and never make it. Not because the door was closed. The door was open the entire time. They simply never walked through it. Now let's talk about why the decision feels so hard. It is not because the action itself is difficult. Waking up early is not physically hard. Saying no to distraction is not physically hard. What is hard is the internal negotiation, the part of your mind that whispers, not today, maybe tomorrow, when things settle down. That voice will always exist. It does not disappear when you become successful. Successful people did not silence that voice. They simply stopped obeying it. Here is something most people never realize. You do not need to defeat that voice completely. You only need to out-decide it once today. One decision, followed by one action, is enough to begin breaking the pattern that has held you back for years. Now think about your own life. What is the one decision you have been avoiding? Maybe it is the decision to finally commit to your health. Maybe it is the decision to stop tolerating a situation that drains you. Maybe it is the decision to pursue the goal you have quietly carried for years, but never given permission to matter. Whatever it is, understand this. It is not waiting for the right time. It is waiting for you. Let's go deeper into how decisions actually shape a life. Most people believe their life is the result of thousands of complicated forces. Luck, timing, other people. But look closer and you will find something simpler. Your life is the sum of your decisions, repeated over time. Every day you decide who you become. Every day you either decide toward growth or you decide toward comfort. There is no neutral option. Not deciding is still a decision to remain where you are. Now here is what separates people who transform their lives from people who stay stuck. It is not intelligence. It is not talent. It is not even opportunity. It is the willingness to make an uncomfortable decision before they feel ready. The person who waits to feel ready will wait forever, because readiness is not a feeling that arrives on schedule. Readiness is manufactured through the decision itself. Think about the moment before any major change in your life. Did you feel fully ready? Probably not. You decided anyway. And the decision created the readiness, not the other way around. This is the order most people get backwards. They think, feel ready, then decide. But the truth is, Decide, then become ready through the process of following through. Now consider the cost of not deciding. It rarely feels dramatic in the moment. There is no single day where you lose everything by staying the same. Instead, it is quiet. It is subtle. One more day of delay, one more week of the same pattern, one more month telling yourself you will start soon. And these small non-decisions accumulate into something enormous, a life that looks nothing like the one you wanted, not because you failed loudly, but because you never decided at all. Compare that to the person who makes one committed decision and follows it daily. At first, the difference is invisible. Both people look the same after 1 week, but after 1 year, the gap becomes undeniable because a single decision, repeated daily, compounds. It builds momentum. It builds identity. And identity is what carries you through the days when motivation disappears. Now let's talk about fear, because fear is usually what stands between you and the decision. Fear of failing, fear of being judged, fear of trying and discovering you are not as capable as you hoped. But here is something to consider. The fear does not go away once you decide. It simply loses its authority. You will still feel it. You will act anyway. That is not the absence of fear. That is discipline in the presence of it. Think about every person you admire who built something meaningful. None of them were fearless. They were simply willing to decide despite the fear, to act while their hands were shaking, to move forward while doubt was still whispering in the background. That is what a real decision looks like. Not the absence of hesitation, but the refusal to let hesitation have the final word. Now here's a truth worth sitting with. Most people are waiting for fear to disappear before they decide. But fear does not disappear first. It fades after, slowly, through repeated exposure to the very thing you were afraid of. You cannot think your way out of fear. You can only act your way through it. And that action begins with one decision, made before you feel ready, before the fear has quieted, before any guarantee of success exists. Let's talk about the myth of the big decision, because most people picture decisions as massive, dramatic events. Quitting a job, moving to a new city, making some grand public declaration. But real transformation rarely starts that way. It starts small, quiet, almost invisible to everyone except you. The decision to get up 15 minutes earlier. The decision to say no to one distraction. The decision to have one honest conversation you've been avoiding. These small decisions do not look like turning points in the moment, but collectively, they are exactly that. Now understand something important about momentum. A single decision made once is not enough to transform a life, but a single decision made once is enough to begin one. That is the distinction most people miss. They think one decision should produce a complete transformation immediately, and when it doesn't, they conclude the decision didn't matter. But the decision was never meant to finish the work. It was meant to start it. Think about it like lighting a fire. The match itself does not warm the room, but without the match, there is no fire at all. The decision is the match. Everything that follows, the discipline, the consistency, the growth, depends on that first small spark existing in the first place. So stop waiting for a decision big enough to change everything instantly. Start with a decision small enough to begin and let it grow through repetition. Now let's talk about the aftermath of a real decision, because this is where most people quietly abandon what they started. The decision itself often feels powerful, even euphoric. There is a rush that comes with finally choosing, finally committing, finally drawing the line. But that rush fades, usually within days. And when it fades, many people mistake the absence of excitement for the absence of commitment. They think, I don't feel as motivated as I did on day one, so maybe this wasn't the right decision after all. That thinking is a trap. Motivation was never meant to last. It was only ever meant to get you started. What carries you after motivation fades is the decision itself, held on to independent of how you feel about it that day. This is the real test of whether a decision was genuine. Not how you feel about it in the beginning, but whether you honor it once the feeling is gone. Think about a decision as a promise made to your future self, a promise that does not get renegotiated every time your mood shifts. If your commitment depends entirely on how motivated you feel each morning, you do not yet have a decision. You have a preference, and preferences change constantly. A decision, by contrast, holds steady regardless of mood, regardless of circumstance, regardless of how inconvenient it becomes to keep it. State 5. Script generation. Part 3 of 6. Now let's talk about the people who never make the decision at all, because understanding their pattern is often the fastest way to avoid becoming one of them. These are not lazy people. Many of them work hard, stay busy, fill their days with activity. But their activity is scattered, reactive, disconnected from any single committed direction. They respond to whatever is loudest in front of them, rather than choosing deliberately what deserves their attention. Busy is not the same as decided. You can spend an entire year in motion and still be exactly where you started, because motion without decision has no direction to accumulate toward. Think about the difference between drifting and deciding. Drifting feels safer because it requires no commitment, no risk of being wrong, no moment where you have to stand behind a choice. But drifting is its own decision, quietly made every day. You refuse to choose a direction. The tragic part is that drifting often feels like patience. People tell themselves they are waiting for clarity, waiting for the right moment, waiting for more information. But clarity rarely arrives before the decision. It arrives after, as a direct result of finally choosing and discovering, through action, what actually works. Now understand something crucial about waiting for clarity. You cannot think your way into a decision the same way you cannot think your way into confidence. Both are produced by action, not by additional deliberation. The person who waits for total certainty before deciding will wait indefinitely, because certainty is not something life offers in advance. It only offers certainty in hindsight, after the decision has already been made and tested through experience. Let's talk about what happens the moment you actually decide, because there is a psychological shift that occurs the instant a real decision is made. Not a wish, not a hope, but an actual decision, backed by action. The mental noise quiets. The endless internal debate that consumed so much energy simply stops, because the question has been answered. This is one of the most underrated benefits of deciding. It's not just that you begin moving forward. It's that you stop wasting energy on the exhausting cycle of should I or shouldn't I, which drains far more than most people realize. Think about how much mental energy indecision actually costs. Every day you postpone a decision, some portion of your attention remains tied up in the unresolved question, replaying the same considerations, the same doubts, the same hypothetical outcomes. That mental loop is expensive, even when it doesn't feel like work. The moment you decide, that energy becomes available again, redirected toward the action itself, instead of the endless deliberation about whether to take it. Now let's talk about why one decision, properly made, can outweigh years of hesitation. This is not an exaggeration. It is simply how compounding works. A decision made today, followed through daily, begins generating results almost immediately, even if those results are invisible for a while. But hesitation generates nothing. It preserves the status quo indefinitely. So the gap between the person who decides today and the person who waits another year is not measured in months. It's measured in the compounded difference between action repeated for a year and inaction repeated for a year. A difference that becomes enormous, precisely because one side was building the entire time and the other was not. Think about two people standing at the exact same starting point. One decides today. One decides in 6 months. On the surface, 6 months seems like a small gap. But that 6 months, multiplied by the daily compounding of consistent action, often becomes a gap that takes years to close. This is why the decision matters so much more than people initially believe. It is not just about starting. It's about how much time compounds in your favor once you finally do. Now consider something most people overlook entirely. The decision to stop is just as powerful as the decision to start. Sometimes the one decision away from a better life isn't a new commitment. It's the decision to stop something that has been quietly draining you. The decision to stop tolerating a situation that no longer serves you. The decision to stop numbing yourself with distraction instead of facing what actually needs to change. The decision to stop repeating patterns that you already know are holding you back. Think about how much clarity exists in a genuine decision to stop. Unlike starting, which often requires building something new from nothing, stopping requires only the willingness to remove what no longer belongs. And often, removing the thing that's draining you creates the space necessary for the new decision to actually take root. You cannot build a disciplined life on top of habits that are actively working against it. Sometimes the first decision has to be subtraction before addition becomes possible. State 5, script generation, part 4 of 6. Now let's talk about identity, because this is where a single decision either becomes permanent or quietly fades back into old patterns. Most people try to change their behavior without ever addressing the identity underneath it. They decide to wake up early, but underneath, they still see themselves as someone who struggles with mornings. They decide to save money, but underneath, they still see themselves as someone who is bad with finances. And because the identity never changed, the new behavior eventually collapses back to match the old self-image. Behavior that contradicts identity is temporary. Behavior that confirms identity is permanent. Think about what it actually means to decide at the identity level rather than the behavior level. It is the difference between saying, I am going to try exercising this week, and saying, I am someone who trains regardless of how this week goes. The first version is fragile because it depends on a string of successful days to remain true. The second version is durable because it does not require perfection. It only requires that you keep returning to the identity, even after an imperfect day, even after a missed morning, even after a moment of falling short. Now understand something important about how identity shifts. It does not happen through a single dramatic decision alone. It happens through the accumulation of small decisions that align with the identity you're choosing. Every time you act in a way that confirms who you've decided to become, that identity gets stronger. Every time you act in a way that contradicts it, the old identity gets reinforced instead. This is why consistency matters so much more than intensity. One extraordinary day does not build identity. Ordinary days repeated deliberately do. Let's talk about the moment identity actually shifts, because it rarely feels like a single, obvious event. It happens quietly, somewhere in the accumulation of weeks, where you notice you no longer have to talk yourself into the behavior you once dreaded. What used to require willpower now simply happens, almost automatically, because the identity behind it has changed. This is the real destination of a single decision, repeated consistently. Not just new results, but a new self that no longer requires convincing to keep going. Now think about how this connects back to the original decision, the one you're avoiding right now. That decision is not just about the immediate action. It's about the identity on the other side of that action, repeated over time. Deciding to train today is not really about today's workout. It's about becoming someone who trains, someone whose identity no longer negotiates with excuses. Deciding to have that difficult conversation today is not just about the conversation itself. It's about becoming someone who faces discomfort directly instead of avoiding it indefinitely. Let's talk about the resistance that shows up right after a real decision is made. Because this resistance is predictable, and understanding it in advance removes much of its power. The moment you commit to something meaningful, your mind will often produce a wave of reasons why now isn't actually the right time, why you should reconsider, why waiting a little longer might be wiser. This is not a sign that the decision was wrong. It is simply the mind's natural resistance to change, showing up exactly when it always does. Right after commitment, right before the first real test of that commitment. Think about how many people mistake this resistance for a legitimate signal to abandon the decision. They interpret the discomfort as proof that they made a mistake, when in reality the discomfort is proof that the decision matters. Comfortable decisions rarely require resistance, because comfortable decisions rarely ask you to become someone different than who you currently are. The presence of resistance is often the clearest signal that you are on the edge of real growth, not evidence that you should retreat from it. Now consider what it means to expect this resistance instead of being surprised by it. When you know in advance that the days following a decision will bring doubt, inconvenience, and a strong pull back toward the old pattern, you stop treating that resistance as an emergency. You simply recognize it as part of the process, something to move through rather than something to obey. This single shift in expectation is often the difference between people who follow through on decisions and people who abandon them within the first difficult week. Think about your own history with decisions you've made and later abandoned. In most cases, the abandonment did not happen because the decision was wrong. It happened because the resistance arrived and it was mistaken for a sign to stop, rather than a sign that the decision was actually doing its job. Now let's talk about the role of small decisions that compound into the identity you're building, because most people underestimate just how much a single ordinary day can matter. You will rarely remember the exact day you decided to change your life. It will not feel historic in the moment. It will feel like an unremarkable Tuesday, an ordinary morning, a quiet choice made without ceremony. But years later, looking back, that ordinary day is often the one that changed everything, not because of what happened that day specifically, but because of everything that followed from the decision made inside it. Think about how differently we treat decisions in hindsight compared to how they feel in the moment. Looking back, a turning point seems obvious, dramatic, significant. But in the moment it was made, it usually felt small, uncertain, even forgettable. This is worth remembering because it means the decision in front of you right now, the one you might be tempted to dismiss as too small to matter, could be exactly the kind of decision that looks enormous in hindsight, precisely because you chose to follow through on it consistently. Now let's talk about the discipline required to protect a decision once it's made, because a decision unprotected slowly erodes under the weight of daily distractions, other people's opinions, and your own shifting moods. Protecting a decision means refusing to constantly reopen the question you already answered. It means when the resistance arrives, when the doubt shows up, when someone questions your choice, you do not go back to the beginning and relitigate whether the decision was right. You simply continue executing it, because reopening a settled decision every single day is exhausting and ultimately unsustainable. Think about how much energy is wasted by people who make a decision on Monday and quietly reconsider it every day for the rest of the week. That constant reconsideration is not caution. It is a slow abandonment disguised as thoughtfulness. A protected decision, by contrast, gets revisited only at appropriate intervals, not daily, not based on mood, but through deliberate reflection at a reasonable distance, where genuine adjustment can be made without collapsing the entire commitment over a single hard day. Now, consider what it means to build trust with yourself through decisions kept, because this trust becomes the foundation for every future decision you make. Every time you decide something and follow through, you prove to yourself that your word to yourself means something. And every time you decide something and abandon it at the first sign of difficulty, you teach yourself the opposite lesson, that your commitments are negotiable, that your word can be broken whenever it becomes inconvenient. Over time, this pattern becomes self-fulfilling. People who keep decisions become people who trust their own decisions. People who abandon decisions become people who doubt every decision they make, because they've learned through repeated experience that their commitments rarely last. Think about how this connects to confidence, because real confidence is not built through motivational language, or positive thinking. It is built through a track record of decisions kept, promises honored, commitments followed through despite resistance. Each time you do what you said you would do, especially on days you didn't feel like it, you make a small deposit into a kind of internal trust account. And over time, that account becomes the foundation for tackling decisions that once felt far too large to consider. Now, let's talk about what happens when you finally look back on a life built through consistent decisions rather than scattered hopes. It does not look like a single dramatic transformation. It looks like an accumulation, quiet and steady, of choices that most people would have dismissed as too small to matter. The version of you standing on the other side of consistent decisions is not the result of one perfect moment. It is the result of thousands of ordinary ones, each one small individually, but enormous collectively. Think about the version of yourself waiting on the other side of a decision you haven't made yet. That version is not hypothetical. It already exists in potential, waiting for exactly one thing to bring it into reality. Your decision, made today, followed through tomorrow, and protected on the days it feels inconvenient to keep. Now let's bring everything together, because understanding all of this means nothing without applying it to the exact moment you're in right now. You have spent this entire message learning why decisions matter more than motivation, why identity matters more than willpower, why consistency matters more than intensity. But none of that changes your life unless it produces one thing, an actual decision made today, not understood intellectually and set aside for later consideration. Think about what you've been circling for weeks, maybe months, maybe longer. The goal you've mentioned to yourself quietly, but never committed to out loud. The habit would change everything, but keep postponing until conditions feel more convenient. The conversation you've been avoiding, because it feels easier to let the discomfort continue than to face it directly. Whatever it is, you already know. You knew before this message started. What you've been missing isn't information, it's the decision. Now understand something clearly. You do not need to decide everything about your future today. You do not need a 5-year plan, a perfect strategy, or complete certainty about how this unfolds. You need exactly one decision, made cleanly, without endless negotiation. One decision that you protect on the days it feels inconvenient. One decision you honor, regardless of mood. One decision that becomes the first domino in a chain you cannot yet fully see, but that begins the moment you stop deliberating and start choosing. Think about the cost of continuing to wait. Not dramatically, not through some catastrophic event, but through the quiet, compounding cost of another month where nothing changes, another year where the same conversation with yourself repeats without resolution. That cost is real, even though it rarely feels urgent in the moment. The most expensive decisions are often the ones never made because they don't announce their cost all at once. They simply extract it slowly, invisibly, one delayed day at a time. Now consider the alternative. A single decision made today, imperfectly, without full certainty, without complete readiness. That decision does not need to be dramatic to matter. It needs only to be real, backed by action, protected against the resistance that will inevitably follow. From that one decision, everything else becomes possible. Not immediately, not without effort, but through the same compounding process that builds anything worth having. Small, consistent, protected decisions, repeated daily, until they become identity rather than effort. Think about the person you could become through this process, not overnight, but over the months and years that follow one decision made today. That person is not a fantasy. It is simply the accumulated result of choices you have not yet made, waiting patiently for you to begin. And the extraordinary part of this truth is reaching that version of yourself was never about talent, luck, or perfect circumstances. It was always about a decision available to you at any moment, requiring nothing external, nothing borrowed, nothing waited for. Now here is the final truth to carry forward. You are one decision away, not 10 years away, not after everything aligns perfectly. One decision, available right now, in this exact moment, regardless of how you feel about it. The discipline that seems so far away, the body you want to build, the goal you've postponed, the conversation you've avoided, the life you keep imagining from a distance. All of it begins the same way everything worthwhile has ever begun. Not with certainty, not with perfect conditions. With one decision, followed by one action, repeated until it becomes who you are. So stop waiting for the moment to feel right. Stop waiting for motivation to arrive and carry you forward. Stop waiting for permission from anyone, including yourself, in the form of more research, more preparation, more thinking. You already know what the decision is. You've known for a while. The only thing left is choosing it today, in this moment, before the resistance arrives to talk you out of it again. You are one decision away from a different life. Not a different life handed to you. A different life built by you, one committed choice at a time. Make the decision, protect it, follow through on the days it feels inconvenient, and watch as one decision, small in the moment but enormous in hindsight, becomes the beginning of everything you've been waiting to become.